Hey everyone, this is Dan Kamenstein. Welcome back and welcome to Module 2. I have a few updates about CBL specifically, and Dr. Nichols will send a detailed email about this as well, but I wanted to walk through a couple things that are based on your feedback. Thank you again for all that feedback. We did read it all, and we are going to make some changes based on that feedback. Primarily, we are going to make some changes to how the learning objectives are presented. So a lot of feedback we received from students and from faculty was that the learning objectives and the QACs together just felt a little bit overwhelming. So the first change we're making is that the learning objectives are still going to be in the syllabus. They will appear for every case, but they're going to be broad learning objectives, much broader, not case specific, but broader objectives we want you to think about for every CBL case. The QACs will still be released. These are going to be more specific to the case and are just going to help you as a way to go through what you learned of the case and what other things could have been covered that you didn't cover. So these are not meant to be specific to these questions are going to be on the test. They're more meant to help you and your team debrief about how did our week go? Did we cover these things when we went through the case? Why didn't we cover them? Should we have covered them? And just kind of a double check on how that CBL process is going for the week. So what you will see then is learning objectives in the syllabus, and then the QACs will get released as part at the end of your afternoon session. So if we go to courses here, you see we'll go to courses and we go to our MSK skin block, and you'll see just as in previous modules, the CBL, and then you'll see that here that we have week 12, and we will see that you're going to get a one-liner. So we have 52-year-old male with low back pain times 2 days. And this is the basic premise of week 12 case. Now we're not going to release any other information over the weekend, so that should give you a little bit less time to actually make this the end diagnosis. A lot of people said that they felt like all the material ahead of time actually led you to the diagnosis before you even started the case. So now we're going to give you some general information, and then part 1 of the case will be released on that Monday morning. In addition to that, you'll have your reflection question that will be in that part of the folder. Any additional study material that we think might help with the week that's optional but not mandatory will be in there, and then the journal article will be released at Monday at 10:30. So that gives you a little bit of time just to explore the initial part of the case, to do some work as a group without having to do too much reading ahead of time. The journal article then we're going to ask you to discuss on the Friday session. So that will give you the whole week to read through the journal article, think about how it applies, but we're hoping that will give a little bit less information about the final diagnosis of the case. You'll still see that there's a part 1, part 2, part 3. The QACs are going to be released after your afternoon session. So if you're on Tuesday afternoon, those will come out on Tuesday. If they're on Wednesday afternoon, they'll come out on Wednesday. On Thursday, they'll come out on Thursday. The QACs are not meant to give you specific information about what's going to be on the quiz. They're really meant to help you double check with your group about how your learning process went. What of those things did you cover? What didn't you cover? If you didn't cover something that was on the QACs, do you think it's important? If so, why? If you don't think it's important, why not? And just help you kind of, again, guide you through that CBL process a little bit more. There's been a lot of questions about the CBL specific questions that are on the weekly quizzes. There are not specific CBL questions on the weekly quizzes anymore. So you will not see any specific questions that come from the CBL case that has not been covered in some other part of the module. So any quiz question at the end of the weekly quizzes will have been covered during lecture or any of the additional material that was assigned to you. But there are not case questions written by CBL facilitators or by the CBL faculty that are on the end of week quizzes. That doesn't mean the material in the weekly case won't be covered. So the goal of each case is to interact with what you're learning during the lectures, and that integration is going to become more and more apparent as we get into the more clinical aspects of the modules. So you will have questions about back pain during your quiz at the end of week 12. That's a common thing. There's a lot of anatomical reasons why people might have back pain, and so you should certainly expect to see a question about back pain on the week 12 quiz. But that will not be a question that's specific to CBL. It'll be information that's been covered throughout the week. So please do not feel that during CBL you have to spend a lot of time guessing what we're going to be asking you. There's still going to be information from CBL on the quizzes. It's just not information that's specifically covered in CBL. At the end of module NBME exam, you'll also be tested on a lot of the concepts that were covered in CBL in NBME style questions. So there's still going to be questions about CBL, but again, it's not going to be stuff that's only in CBL that hasn't been covered in other places. So those are the main updates that I have for you. Again, please feel free to give us feedback. The feedback forms are still on Teams. You can give us general feedback. We are going to be soliciting feedback for each specific case from groups. And so if your group is in the rotation to give feedback, please give us feedback specifically about each case. We do appreciate that you've been doing that throughout the first module, and that has been really helpful as we revamp these modules. A couple other announcements. We are going to be rotating facilitators at the end of this module. So you will still have the same facilitator throughout this module, and then after Christmas break, we're going to rotate facilitators. So you'll have a new facilitator beginning in the January module, and that's again to help you be exposed to different teaching styles, also to allow you to get some experience with having different preceptors, similar to how you have different attendings when you go through your clinical rotations. One other aspect that I did want to address briefly during this session, because there have been a lot of questions that facilitators have indicated that have come up during the evaluation component. And that's just a question of how the mid-module and end-of-module CBL evals are structured and the overall performance. So our hope in designing this curriculum in general, and specifically with CBL, is to give you a sense of a progression. We want you to be working through a set of clinical skills, but also general skills in learning and in clinical care that will help you as you enter into your clerkships. One thing that we do very well here is assess clinical knowledge. Every student that enters clerkships at MCG has been extensively evaluated on their medical knowledge. We do a lot of testing around that. The other domains of our competencies are not evaluated as clearly, and CBL and PCL are really designed to help evaluate those other competencies. And those are not competencies that we expect you to be masters of when you get here week one. If you were masters of those things, you wouldn't have to come to medical school. You could just go right into residency. So we want you to start mastering those. So we do not expect you to be getting 100%. We expect most students are going to fall into the middle range. And that is different than how you've been evaluated for a lot of things. I think all of us, when we got to medical school, excelled at everything. And that was what we were told was important to succeed. But in CBL, what's important is that you're making progression. You're not going to start out as an expert. You're going to start out as a novice, and we want to move you towards expertise during 18 months. So please do not feel that those numbers or a score that you think is lower than what you might have expected means that you're not doing well. It means that you are exactly where you're expected to be. Now, I'm going to pull up the mid-module distribution and the end-of-module distribution here. And if you look at these, what you'll find is on the left, obviously, is the low side, and on the right is the high side. And what you'll find here is actually that mid-module, everyone did well. No one failed CBL. We had a couple people that were on the low aspect, a couple people that were on the high aspect, but most people really fell right in the middle of that distribution. And the same occurred for the end of module evaluations. In fact, we see here that we have a nice distribution. The actual percentages were a little bit higher, but most people still fell in that mid-range. So most of you are doing and exactly where you need to be. We have a couple low performers and a couple high performers, but no one who's failing CBL. So so this is exactly kind of where we want you to be and what we want you to be thinking about. Please do not feel that if you haven't gotten 100% on your CBL evaluation that you're doing poorly. These are designed to be a progression over time. And I know that your facilitators have told you this, and we've been telling them that as well. We do not feel that anyone's going to fail the module because of CBL, and we want you all to have a chance to progress and make improvements. If everyone was perfect in CBL, there wouldn't really be an opportunity for you to grow and learn. That's all the updates that I have at this point. I hope this is helpful. Again, the main changes we're making here is the timing of when information is going to be released. So you will really get very little, just a chief complaint and some demographics ahead of exploring the case on Monday morning. And then on Monday morning is when you'll get the first part of the case. We're moving the journal article to come out after that first session on Monday, and then you'll cover the journal article on Friday. The QACs will come out after the afternoon session, and you'll have time to review those also during the Friday session. Finally, I'm going to say that the weekly CBL overview podcasts are going to go away. I got a lot of feedback that people found them helpful, but looking at just how many people are watching them and accessing them, it seems that now that you're into the flow of how a general week is structured, how things are set up, that a lot of that information is what most of you are already pulling from the syllabus and looking through things. So I will be giving you video updates and information when things change, or if we're making changes to CBL, or I think there's other information, but I will not be doing week-to-week podcast for this module. As always, please reach out if you have questions, concerns, any feedback. We're always here, and we're looking forward to our next module together.